Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to Friday Fuel Round 2. So, this webinar series is something I kicked off a couple of weeks ago on Friday. I want to think it was January 27th. And now we're back again for the second round. This is a bi-weekly series I'm running, really to just share my lessons in leadership from my time in software, running SDR teams, and running customer success. So this is something I'm going to do every couple of weeks for roughly half an hour to 45 minutes. My goal over time is to keep building a community of people who will be able to benefit from these conversations and then eventually have more people come in to be co-hosts to share their expertise as a community grows. Because I'm a teacher at heart, that was my background for a long time, which I'll share in a minute. And so I just want this to be educational, provide value to other people, and help them on their leadership journey wherever they are in terms of building companies. So without further ado, let me kick it off here. I'm going to share my screen and get to today's topic. So bear with me 1 second while I do that. Okay. So kicking off today is called Build It Right. That's the topic today that I'm talking about. And some quick background on me in case you don't know me or this is the first time seeing me. I was a teacher and a coach at the Pingree School for 15 years, had the chance to teach middle school history, and I was a middle school and high school wrestling coach. Loved it, thought my whole career was going to be in education, and then got a curveball in my early 40s, which is a different story for a different time. And I left education and had the opportunity to join Tenna, which is an amazing construction software company, connection I made through the Conti family. And while I was at Tenna, I had the experience and the chance to do a lot of different things. Specifically, I got the chance to build the first version of the SDR team and the first version of the customer success teams. And during that time, we really had explosive growth. Company went from a six-figure ARR company to a strong eight-figure ARR company to where it is today. And the fuel for that experience was largely through the outbound SDR team. So after a great 7-year run there, I had the opportunity, beginning of 2024, it was a big year for me coming up. And I thought it's time for me to do what I'd always wanted to do, which is start my own company and to be able to help people on their journeys. So February 2024, I founded Path. And now my mission is to help companies to design, hire, and coach and train SDRs. So really to help people build teams and go through that process from inception to elevating and building high performance. So that's me, and that's what I'm all about. And that's what Path is devoted to today. So real quickly, who is Friday Fuel for? What's the point of these webinars? So really there's kind of three main groups. Number one, maybe you're an early stage startup. You're thinking about building an SDR team to accelerate, but you're not really quite sure how to do it. Maybe you're a sales leader who is responsible for hiring and coaching a sales team, and you're looking for that edge to elevate. Or maybe you're someone who's just in sales and you're looking for a perspective from the other side because you want to build your career, you want to get better in sales, and maybe you do want to be in leadership. So that's really who this webinar is for. And really, I think over time, I'll continue to expand and talk about all parts of the revenue org. So today, kickoff question. How do you make sure your revenue org in a B2B tech company is built to win? I'll say that one more time. How do you make sure your revenue org in a B2B tech company is built to win? So that's really what we're going to dive into today. And there's really two main topics. Number one, what are the common mistakes that derail your team from high performance? I've made many of them, and a lot of where I build these Friday Fuels from pertain to mistakes I've made and lessons I've learned to help other teams get better and to not repeat these same mistakes. And then, of course, in avoiding them, what are the structures I can put in place to not only avoid the landmine, but then build a good practice or a best practice to elevate. And then we'll have a little time for question and answer. So that's the structure of today. So my lessons learned from early SDR team days, and really I'll talk about my early SaaS days. And I've seen this play out with not only the company I was in, but really every company I've worked with. I see a lot of common themes that I share. And so number one, really every startup I've seen, everybody who's in early stage, even to mid stage, has these things in common. There's a ton of energy. Naturally, you would think that you build a product or a service, you're pretty fired up to get out there and share it. And that's a great thing. I've never seen a low energy startup. High expectations, right? So you have energy around your product or service and expectations of you're going to do really well. You have limited time because you always feel as though you're on a race to somewhere and you got to hit those next KPIs. And you wish you got there yesterday. And then you also have limited process because you don't stop and build a company in a vacuum and get all the SOPs down. You often build as you go. So all these factors really inform how people do things. And I think that you want speed, and this produces a lot of activity, right? You have energy, you have momentum. So a lot gets done. But it's also really crucial to make sure that that activity is directed and harnessed. Because what I've seen and what I've experienced and the lessons I've learned is that if you don't, you miss a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of energy and enthusiasm and excitement, and a lot of things are done, but you're not necessarily maximizing the opportunity. So I'm going to jump in right now to the three most common mistakes that I've seen and made, and then what are some ways to avoid that. So here's common mistake number one: poor documentation. Poor documentation. So it makes sense at the beginning that your documentation is poor because you're doing stuff, right? You're getting out there and you're getting after it. So that kind of makes sense. You don't know what you don't know. And so you need to have activity. You need to fail forward and you need to understand then what you need to document. But, and so really it's not about being perfect. It's just about setting some minimum standards. Because if you can do that at the beginning and hold the bar on those couple of pieces of key data, you're going to actually go a lot farther and faster than you think. And so I'm going to talk about three different constituencies because I've seen it all in terms of poor documentation, how it can hurt a company. So I'll start with SDRs and SDR teams. Oftentimes you have a team and the focus is you want to get out and running. You want calls, you want emails, you want LinkedIn touches. And so I think this is a really key piece that I think needs to be important and some documentation around. Otherwise, it can be a really hurtful piece in terms of what you get in your data. It's the DQ. So let me describe how poor documentation around disqualifying companies and contacts can hurt you. So here are two examples. All right. I'm Joey. I'm a new SDR. I've got my list. I'm all pumped up. I'm ready to go. I got my cup of coffee. I tack the phones. I call somebody. And what happens? I jump into my value prop, click. Person hangs up. So if I don't have a great SOP around what that means, here's what can happen. What if it's my first day of making phone calls, or it's my 100th day? And I just caught the CEO or the owner or the project manager, whoever my target is. Let's say I caught them on a bad day and they hung up and I mark them as disqualified. Are they really disqualified? Naturally, the answer I would say is no. You got to hang up. All that means is in that moment, at that time, that person did not want to continue the conversation. Maybe your value prop was the greatest thing since sliced bread, but they couldn't talk right then. Maybe you got disconnected. Maybe they were in a bad cell phone area. But if you mark that as DQ, now you've taken that company out of play, where this needs to be documented the right way, where you figure out how that needs to be categorized. Because I would encourage that person to call that contact again a number of times until you understand, are they fit or are they not a fit? So mismarking a DQ just because of a hangup is very dangerous because now you're missing an opportunity. And In my perspective, leads don't grow on trees. Number two, the bad fit, right? So this is also a really, really important piece to understand. Oftentimes, there are companies that you'll call, and whatever your value prop might be, maybe you're looking for, maybe you're a construction tech software that works with superintendents, and you're trying to call up because you need a critical mass of, if it's less than 5 supers, it's not going to be a fit for you. So you call up and you find out that uh, they have 4. Well, right now you're not a fit for them, but you might be a fit in a few months. If I just mark that as a DQ, then I don't really have any more information around that. So I need some more color because in 6 months they might be a great fit. Also, let's say I call them up and I'm calling this civil construction company and I find out that they're actually a pest control company. So here's the opposite problem. I'm an SDR making a bunch of calls. If I do not disqualify that company permanently, then guess what? Someone else is going to call them, and then someone else might call them, and we're wasting time because we didn't properly mark the CRM. So understanding what is a bad fit, both temporary and future, really important to document this well. Otherwise, it's just money and time down the drain, and your time is your money. So again, you have to understand the difference between a temporary snapshot and a permanent snapshot, because if you don't document well, it's going to hurt. Here's the second bucket. Let's talk about account executives. All right. You book a demo, you have a chance to get the meeting, whether that's a virtual or on-site. Let's go. Game on, right? So AE has a great meeting and they go through all the different pieces. Maybe it's in limbo. Maybe it's exciting to move on to a quote, a proposal stage. Maybe it's not a fit right now. But guess what? You need notes, right? This sounds so basic. It's so fundamental, but I've been struck by, I understand that account executives have an incredibly challenging job. They're juggling a ton of hats. So many studies have done around the lack of time they have. I think Salesforce did a great one at the end of 2024 about the lack of time account executives have because they juggle a lot. But if you don't put notes in, what a wasted opportunity. Because even though everybody thinks they know intimately every conversation, every detail with every single prospect, the reality is in a few hours, you're going to retain less. In 24 hours, even less. And in a week, you're going to miss key details, let alone in 4 or 5 months, you may not remember anything or if you even met with them. So really simple pieces, right? As a high performing team, if you have the standard of excellence that you want to grow, and you want to keep meeting people and have a great product or service that impacts and can help companies over time, you have to have a couple of key pieces of data every time you have a demo. Here are the basics. Who's in it, right? Who's the POC? What is their job? Is it an owner? Is it a project manager? Or is it somebody that was outside of the selling process? You need to know who you talk to. What did you talk about? Obviously, you would think that you learn a lot about the pain points of the company and then your solution and maybe what are some of the ways in which you can help. But you want those fundamental details in there. And of course, the when. When do they want a solution in place? Is now the right time or is it down the road? Or are there conditions that need to be met? Maybe you don't have all the feature set that they need, in which case this is a revisit in a quarter or two. You need to know that. And of course, why are they a good fit or not? Is this a permanent bad fit that maybe went through from the SDR stage? Or maybe they're a great fit. And again, it comes down to a timing or a price piece. So all this information in my mind, someone could be having a demo and get right back on the call. Or they might have back-to-back demos in a given day. Stuff happens. Maybe you do a demo and you're getting on a plane. But within 24 to 48 hours, in my mind, that note's got to be there. I think it's really hard to consider yourself to be a professional organization if you don't have great notes, because the value of that meeting is so high. Think about the cost of what you're paying in terms of team, or if you're getting inbound and what that costs to get the meeting booked or to get that lead in play. So if then you sit down and meet with somebody in person or virtual, and you're building a relationship and you're getting all kinds of specific insights, if that doesn't find its way into your CRM, to me, you're wasting thousands of dollars with the information in that conversation from a lack of notes. How about customer success? Here's a third area where I think this is crucial for your customer success team. And look, separate topic for another Friday Fuel that I'll devote entirely and probably several to customer success. They're probably the most important part of your revenue engine. So yes, amen to all the customer success folks out there. Customer success is crucial to the organization, often underappreciated or undervalued, but ultimately the first sale gets a company in the door. But then based on what you do with that relationship, that's really where the value is built. And that's where advocates and advocacy is built over time, what you do once you have the customer. So to me, this is a crucial place of documentation. And what a CS leader must be able to know at a moment's notice are really a couple of things. Um, and, it's a challenge because oftentimes, my experience, the sales org is built, and then customer success has this magic expectation of keeping every single customer perfectly happy, bat 100%, know every single intimate detail about every single aspect of the company. So there's a high level of expectation that falls on customer success. But the basics, first of all, are they happy, right? Are they happy? What's the status of this customer? So a leader needs to know, and of course, wherever way you have your CS org structured, a CSM, a CSR, whatever you call it, whatever that support function is, they need to know, are they happy? A colleague of mine, James House, that was a fantastic leader in customer success, who ended up running the department after me, he had a great way to think about this. And I loved his analogies, metaphors. Of course, you want to know the health of the customer, and a lot of that goes into how well they're doing and all the nuances. But of course, one thing you always need to know is, are they sick or dying? You have to think about it almost like a hospital point of view, right? Somebody who's doing care in a hospital needs to know the most high priority customers. Of course, it's the ones doing well, and you want to treat them with the utmost care to make sure that they are the happy ones or even happier. But the ones that have risk, right? If there's a sickness or they're in a state where it's terminal, you must know that, because you want to do everything in your power to solve those problems, to stay in contact, and to make sure that those 911s are being dealt with really quickly and as effectively as possible. The other thing is history, right? It's important to know where they were a month ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, to be able to understand the life cycle of the customer. But to me, the last 2 weeks are the most relevant, right? The last 2 weeks are the most relevant. And, really, from my perspective, no news is bad news in customer success, okay? If you don't keep in contact with your customers, you really don't know how happy they are, and how great of a relationship can you have if you're serving somebody and you're only talking once a month or once a quarter. I would suggest that I need to know at least every couple of weeks of what's happening. And so making sure as a customer success rep or a customer success manager, you need to log activity, right? When was the last conversation? What was said in the conversation? Because you want to know those finer points. So if every couple of weeks, if I'm the leader of that department, if I can get that snapshot from my team, I'm in a good place. I know status and I know activity, because then you can iterate on what's top of mind. Those seem really basic, but as often is true, not just in B2B SaaS or in B2B tech, but in life, common sense is not always common practice. So oftentimes I see the absence of this. And then what ends up happening? You think someone's happy, you don't talk, maybe you send an email, you make a phone call, you don't get a response, you don't talk for a couple months, and then what happens? You find out they churn, or they're getting ready to churn because all of a sudden a pain popped up and you didn't know about it. No news is bad news. So staying in contact is crucial. So from a CS perspective, status and activity are things that must be documented. So that was just common mistake number one. Let's move to number two that I see in an organization. It's silos. It's silos. Like I said, startups move fast, and that's by design. So when you're in a job, if you're an SDR, if you're an AE, if you're a customer success rep, you need to keep your head down, do your job, and execute. That goes without saying, right? It's also important once in a while to pick up your head and connect. And so I think that what can happen in high impact, fast moving, aspirational organizations is everybody does a really, really, really great job of working hard in their lane, and then those lanes stay disconnected. So what I would say is, here's what happens in the silo model. Here's what that looks like oftentimes. SDRs, they focus where they need to focus, booking demos, booking meetings. And so what gets missed is great communication opportunities to provide color to account executives of, hey, here are the key details around this particular company that I think you want to know in the meeting. And then to customer success. So what would that look like? Well, I almost think about this more on a macro level. If SDRs are having more voice of customer conversations than anybody else out there, they're going to probably 100x or 1000x the amount of time, the amount of number of customers that a CS person might be speaking with. So by understanding the trends of what prospects are most interested in right now, that's a great download for not only account executives, but also customer success. Here are the questions in the industry. Here are the interests from prospects. Because ultimately, once they do become customers, it's good for CS to know the themes that are on the mind on a bigger level. And of course, just tactically, if SDRs and AEs don't talk, they're going to miss out on tag teaming a prospect and working together. From an AE perspective, what's the AE's number one job? Go deep, do great demos, and close deals. That's the job. But if they only really get into their own deals, they might miss the key SDR nugget. They might miss that key piece where they understand that the SDR talked about what a family-owned company it is and how passing down information to the next generation is key because the owner is looking to retire. And one of the reasons they need this software is they want to build in some repetition. They want to build in some redundancy. So if an AE just keeps their head down and just looks at all the qualifying details, they might miss that nugget. That's why SDRs and AEs have to talk. You also misreport the SDR that can uncover new opportunities. If you have a team that's working, then let's say they do a lot of on-sites, they're visiting prospects. Well, obviously, if they're scheduling on a day or a week and they have 10 planned appointments over 4 days, well, maybe there's some downtime. And that SDR can say, hey, look, I'm also working these other 100. Let's see if we can figure out some more opportunities because these guys are right on your route. So working with SDRs and talking, you can uncover more opportunities. Lastly, let's talk about customer success. What should they be doing? They do their job. They focus on the customer relentlessly. And that's great. They will serve with excellence. That said, they have the most intimate knowledge of customers, right? If they are customer obsessed and they do a great job of serving, there's a great opportunity to come back and then share what do our current customers really care about. Yes, we might have a feature set that does 5 great things, but look, these are the 2 our customers really care about, and let me tell you why. Because in CS, I have intimate knowledge of those details. So by building in that communication opportunity in a company, you then have the chance to then download that great information that informs the front end of the sales cycle. So some winning structures, which I've already kind of started to talk about, is number one, a customer kickoff meeting in a template. So SDRs prospect a company, they make the first phone call, they take some notes, account executive works the deal and gets the contract. Well, before that deal goes live. A great construct is a customer kickoff template and a customer kickoff meeting. The template is just a great way to download key different aspects of why they won the deal. Who are the basic players? What are the top three reasons they bought the software? What are their biggest challenges? What other details are important to know about this company? Filling out an easy template every single time, and then having an internal meeting between sales and customer success provides for the information to be shared in a really efficient and valuable way. Without that, it's really easy to have that get lost in the shuffle. And then when you're starting off with a new customer, if you don't have that insight, customers hate bad handoffs. And if they feel as though they're getting passed off to somebody new that doesn't understand anything and they have to repeat themselves all over again, you're going to lose trust in the kicking off this next chapter. So that's a really important construct to make sure you get great communication. That's a really winning practice. SDR AE pods. So as you mature over time, as your organization gets bigger and better, build partnerships, either one-to-one with SDRs and AEs, or maybe it's two-to-one, where they're kind of focused on the same geographies or verticals. So this way you're getting that deep rapport among a group. Finally, those flywheel conversations, on a regular basis, whether that's once a month or minimum once a quarter, get the whole revenue org together. SDRs, AEs, customer success, and have that flywheel conversation so people know what's being interested in terms of the prospecting, what's gathering people in to the top of the funnel, why are they interested? In deals, what are the common objections and how are account executives solving them? And then from the customer standpoint, what's happening, what are people really loving and what are they asking for with enhancements? Then everybody in the rev team gets really dialed in to exactly where the customer is and how they can all do their jobs better. So to me, these flywheel conversations can be so enriching, but you have to have the willingness to have that learning culture, and you have to dedicate the time to have it. If you stay in your silos, you're going to miss this unbelievable chance for the internal download. Okay, last but not least, common mistake number 3, unstructured training. I think this metaphor says it all, and oftentimes you know what that looks like. The pressure is real. I get it. I've been there in building both sides of the house in these different teams. To get SDRs and AEs and customer success up and running quickly is a real challenge. And it's a real need. So what happens? They get thrown in fast because you need them to be highly competitive right away. And ironically, what happens is the desire for speed can slow you down because in the rush to get to competence, you miss a lot of key foundations. And so you end up having to reteach because of the gaps. So to me, one thing I think about is, again, put the teacher and coach hat back on of my time in that realm. This to me is a great construct, a great way to think about it. So good old honest Abe here was asked a question. If he had 6 hours to chop down a tree, what would he do? What would he do? So the answer is, hey, give me the first 4 hours. I'm going to sharpen the axe. I'm going to sharpen the axe. So what does that mean? It means preparing the right way to think about how you're going to do this training and what you're going to deliver. So for me, I've got a really simple approach and how I look at this. It's got 2 different parts in terms of how I structure the training. So to me, there's what I call the success framework, and the second is the failure pre-mortem. And so let me walk you through how I look at that training according to those two different constructs. So the first is the success framework. So it's real simple. Whatever training period I'm going to outline and how long that training should go is also another topic for another time. But I think of three questions. By the end of training, what should they be able to do? So you think about what skills do they need? What should they know? So what kind of knowledge should they have? What should they be able to understand conceptually? And then third, how should they show up for work every day? How should they feel? The third is often something that's missed because ultimately, when you think about that, not only is it going to be the skills that they need to be able to do the job successfully, and they need that body of knowledge to do it, but they also should be showing up in a certain way. They should be confident. They should be prepared. They should be hungry. They should be able to feel as though they're supported by their leaders. All these things are really important because you want them to go out and execute with excellence. They need to be able to feel supported and confident in the job. So I think about that. And so when I structure training, I try to begin with the end in mind. So, hey, by the end of this training period, what does success look like? And then I can work backwards and figure out what are those skills, what is the knowledge, and how do I best deliver that so they feel like they can go out and they can kick some ass in this job. So that's how I look at it. Now, here's what also I think is really powerful. So you can build out this skill framework and the knowledge framework, and then hey, have ideas of targets of how they want to feel. But James Clear in Atomic Habits has a great structure that he calls the failure pre-mortem. So here's the way I look at this. If we fail in this training and we don't develop people the right way, so what are the costs of that? So what are they not going to be able to do? Or what the bad skills look like? If I'm training somebody in sales, well, that's going to show up of if I'm training SDRs, they can't really be successful making a phone call. They can't write a proper email. They can't use the CRM effectively. If I'm training account executives, a lack of skills will be poor execution in the demo, improper note taking, bad deal follow-up. So all in customer success, it's going to be ineffectiveness in setting up a customer, choppy onboarding. You understand the costs are going to be really high. And so when I map those out, all of a sudden now this can be really powerful of understanding here's what I want to, here's my success framework, here's what I want to avoid. Poor knowledge. How's that going to show up? If they don't understand these concepts, how can we teach a customer how to use our solution? If we don't have the knowledge foundation of what our value prop is, how are we going to be able to articulate that in a demo or on an outbound cold call? How are we, if we don't have the knowledge of the way I talk differently between an owner and a CFO and an ops manager, then I'm going to have the same conversation. So knowing that and having that knowledge foundation is key. If I lack that, all conversations will be the same. And ultimately, that misalignment, what does that show up like? What's the inverse of confidence? Lack of confidence. And that's going to create indecision, tentativeness. If I want people to feel hungry and excited and aggressive to attack the day, well, if I fail here, they're going to be passive. They're going to be tentative. They're going to feel unsupported. And guess what? If by the end of the training period, we don't achieve what we need to, you better believe a lot of doubt's going to be planted. And not only is it going to show up in poor performance, you're going to have a revolving door where these people are going to be out the door pretty soon. So the cost is really high of failing to execute on your training. That's why the structure is key. So to me, those are the three most common mistakes and how I would try to make sure I align better with communication to set the Rev org up for success. So I'm going to stop right here and I'm going to pause for questions. I'll stop the share and I'll see if anybody has any questions, please drop those in the chat. I probably should have said this right when I kicked off, that if you have any questions throughout, you get the chance to be able to drop those in. So if you have any, I'd love to hear your thoughts or your questions around this experience with Rev Teams. And so I'm going to stop share. I'm going to go over to see what questions might be coming up here on the feed. And give me 1 second while I go look for that. Okay, not seeing any chat messages yet, but I'll wait a little longer here, see if anything's coming up. All right, I'm not seeing any questions here. And honestly, if you watch this later on and you have questions, you can feel free to reach out to me. Totally fine. So let me come back here just to share a few more final thoughts. Sorry, that was not the screen I was looking for. All right. Okay. So just as a recap here, a couple of things. So first of all, document properly. If you document properly from SDRs, AEs, customer success, you're going to add a lot of value throughout an organization. Number two, create those communication connections and flywheels. If you're able to do that, you're going to create a ton of value in terms of the connecting threads of what you'll do in an organization. And then number three, invest the time and effort into structuring thoughtful training. Those dividends that you're going to see down the line of not just execution of proper skill development and proper knowledge, but you'll be creating rapport and trust by creating confidence in your team. Everybody wants to do well when they come into a new job. So, making sure you understand what that success looks like and the cost if you don't are just going to really help you envision what success looks like and then what failure looks like. And it's going to help you be a better leader. So, as a last thought here today, looking ahead, I'm going to keep running these every couple of weeks on Fridays. Fridays at noon seems to be the go-to time. So I'll always try to put these recaps up on YouTube. That way, if you want to see it, I think also now I've understood that LinkedIn also keeps the video here, so you can always just go and watch. If you haven't subscribed to my weekly newsletter, I try to share just different insights on leadership in general, based on what's happening out in the world, what's happening in B2B SaaS. So please, if you haven't already subscribed, I'd love you to join my newsletter. And if you have questions, you want to learn more, DM me on LinkedIn. First of all, this particular training today that I'm doing, it really came from an article that I wrote working with Bragan Paramantham. And he's an engineer. He's a guy that's been working in construction for a decade, passionate about the industry. And he has a great newsletter called Last Week in Contech. So if you came to this today and you're specifically into construction tech, I wrote this article in working with Bragan. And so today's episode was really inspired by those learnings that I put together in that article. So if you want to get a copy of that, where I lay this out in more of a written format, just send me a message. I'll click you back to that link so you can access it. And then also, let's say you are coming from this perspective of you're a B2B SaaS leader and you want to you want to elevate your team, whether that's an organization that's about to launch an SDR effort, or maybe you have a team in place and you're starting and you want to be able to refine and tune up your team to be able to get to a higher level. Reach out to me. I'd love to learn more about your business. I'd love to talk to you about what it is that you do, because my passion is to help to build and elevate teams. Like I said at the beginning, I'm a teacher and a coach by trade, and I love helping companies to be able to reach this goal. So that's what this series is all about. That's what my work is all about. So I'd love to hear what you're doing and see if I can be a fit. So thank you today. This was awesome for me to get this opportunity. Again, love to see and hear more from you. So I wish we had more questions today, but I'm sure if you do watch this and you have some, DM me, reach out, and we'll continue the conversation. So until next time, thank you so much, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.